So why do I feel so lost? I remember when my first son was born back in June of 2020. I was so excited. Um, it was early in the morning and my wife was doing her last push. And before you know it, the baby came out and I was a father for the first time. And right from the beginning, I was given the opportunity to cut the umbilical cord. And I failed miserably. I used just one hand and I just didn't push down forcefully enough. You know, you think you're going to be a superhero right away. Um, but initially, as a dad, I just felt invisible. I just stumbled right from the beginning through cutting the umbilical cord to picking up the baby the wrong way. I remember the nurse saying, I picked up the baby under the armpits, and the nurse quickly corrected me and said you have to hold it with 2 points of contact, one at the back of the neck, and then one hand on the bottom. And so I was off to a rough start. And yeah, it just continued, Nurses and my wife, everyone was excited, talking. They were talking about breastfeeding and, all the tips and tricks. And I just felt left out, right? I didn't know where I fit in. Yeah, I just felt lost. That night, I was in charge of diaper duty. And it just took me so long to change a diaper. The poo was very sticky, as it usually is with a newborn. And yeah, I just couldn't get it off the butt. So it took me like 20 minutes to change a diaper. And then all while that, you're changing the diaper and the baby's peeing, and then you got to change the mat, and now you got to change the outfit. And it was a bit of a mess, right? But looking back on it now, I would say I can't say I'm surprised, because what job do you do well right away, right? When you start a new job, that first week is pretty rough. You're learning systems, new procedures, new softwares, new rules. You're getting used to the people around you. And this is a job that you probably went to school for, right? Whereas with being a dad, you got no experience, right? You can do all the preparation you want, and I did a ton. I watched a lot of videos. I talked with a lot of friends who had kids. I even changed a diaper on on a doll just to practice. So I did my fair share of preparation, but with anything, unless you actually have experience, it's another story. And so I think I should have been more kind to myself. I should have given myself more grace. Because truth is, I was just adjusting, right? I was just adjusting to this new life, to this new human being, and it would have been weird if I did get it right away, right? But things didn't get better from there. I went home and my, at the newborn stage, week 1, they're sleeping all day, right? And then when they're not sleeping, they're feeding. So I just felt like I didn't have a role, right? You think you're going to be the superhero and you're just invisible. Yeah, you're not really spending a lot of time. You can ask my wife. I just took up other interests. I took up gardening. I was into Japanese maples, and I was tending to our garden in the back, and I think that was just more of a coping mechanism, just to be useful. Like, I just didn't feel useful. I just didn't feel useful. So yeah, it was a rough start for me, and I felt lost. And it wasn't until this one night where my wife was just so tired. Baby was waking up every hour. She asked me, "Hey, I'll feed the baby. Can you just take the baby, change the diaper, and just hold him upright for about 10-15 minutes just so I can get a head start on going to sleep?" And at that point, babies are quite gassy, so it's always good practice to keep the baby upright after a feed. And so I did that. And that changed everything for me. I was able to, even with the lack of sleep, just have some type of purpose with this baby. Even if it was just as simple as changing a diaper and just holding him upright for 15 minutes. I wasn't doing much. I was just sitting with the baby on my chest. But it was in those moments, or that moment, that you're looking at the baby and you're holding him and you're caring for the child, right? And that's when I started to build a bit of a connection with the baby. Well, not a bit, but you know what I mean, right? Like, you start to gain a connection, and it went uphill from there. I got good at that. That was our routine. I would change the baby, burp the baby, hold the baby upright, and then put the baby back to sleep. And that was every day. And then from there, my confidence just grew. I got better at soothing a baby, changing a baby's diaper, walking the baby. I just got a lot more confident, and I just needed that one breakthrough. And so if you're like a dad out there, or not like a dad, but if you're a new dad out there in week 1 and you feel a bit lost, I would say just try to find one thing that you can just do consistently. And that could be anything. It could be changing diapers, it could be burping the baby, it could be taking the baby out for a walk so your wife gets a break. Just try to find one breakthrough, and that from there you'll get confident. You'll get confident. It's, you're not going to learn to be a dad overnight, right? It just takes, and I've learned this later in life, it just takes small wins every day, those compound. Just do one thing every day, get good at it, and then add another thing, and then go from there. And yeah, take it from me, just find that one breakthrough, find that one thing that you can have a role in. And it doesn't even have to be with the baby. It could be just cleaning up the house, right? But just help out. Find one way that you can help out, and trust me, from there it'll just get so much easier. So if you're new here, I'm a father of 3. I have a 5-year-old son, 3-year-old daughter, and 8-month-old daughter. And yeah, I make content on what it's like to be a dad. And a bit of it is retrospective, looking back on week 1 of being a dad. And I've done 2 episodes so far, so let's go on to episode 3. And I'll link a playlist here at the end of the video.